What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. I of course am JB. Today we're going to have a look at Cardano's ADA. We're going to look at the weekly, the daily and the 4-hour chart. Have a look at its price action, what we really need to know about the recent pullback for ADA. Can it continue or are we over the worst of it? First of all, let's start over on the weekly chart. Now, after we did see the high up here of 81 cent reached for ADA back on the week of the 11th of March, we of course have seen quite the dramatic drop to the downside. Overall, 22%. This week we're seeing it down 19.52% from that 81 cent level. But crucially, what we are finding is that we are coming down to retest that 702 Fibonacci level of this retracement area that I've been watching for quite a few weeks, if not months now. We are coming down to test this out on this weekly candle at 65.03 cent on this Binance weekly chart. So can we find this as support and look for another move to the upside, or are we still looking quite bleak here for Cardano's ADA? Perhaps looking to come down to this 58 cent level where we can see the previous higher area of volume would be a bit of support. We're going to analyze that and have a look down through the lower timeframes on today's update and get a grip of this market. Where could Cardano's ADA find support, and can we find yet another rally? So it's great to have you all back with us once again, guys. Before we do get into today's video, as always, please do smash that like button, subscribe and tap on the bell selecting all of the notifications. So ADA, it is in quite an interesting place. As I covered on the weekly time frame, we are coming back down to test out that 702 Fibonacci retracement level of the bigger area that we were looking for the price to come on up to. Now, when we look back at the chart once again, coming back down to 65 cents, ideally, we would find support at this level, but what we can see is stochastic momentum is to the downside. Sitting at 41.32%, we can see this has sharply turned to the downside, and this one may just continue. With the RSI also sitting at 64%, we can see the RSI is indeed still in a bearish outlook here on the weekly time frame. Now, what we have got very interestingly here on this weekly chart, this starting off today, we can see has been printed with a very bearish red dot signal, and this would be quite an interesting level. This is telling us to look to sell off Cardano's ADA on the macro time frame here, that we have most likely hit the local top and we are looking for price to continue to the downside. Now, of course, we do already know that we will look for confirmation on the next weekly candle. Seeing the next weekly candle, of course, print and the red dot remaining, well, that is giving us our confirmation of a go short for ADA. Much like we had back here at the start of January, we did see a few weeks into the middle of February where we were looking very bearish on ADA's price action. So of course, confirmation on this weekly time frame will be by coming into next week and seeing the price potentially continue to drop on down. Now, when we look back at the start of January, we were giving that short signal, that of course being confirmed by the next candle, and we did continue to the downside before we came on to the 12th of February and we were told that momentum was back to the upside. So what we are seeing to start this week off, we are pretty bearish here and we are potentially looking for that price to continue to the downside, of course waiting for the next weekly candle to print for confirmation. So what is going on this drop to the downside? Let's have a look at this one on the daily time frame. So we know the internal move to the upside within this fifth wave. Yes, guys, having a look at this through Elliott wave theory, well, we know that we have came up into that fifth wave target area between 75 and 88 cents. Internally, we know we are looking at a bunch of A, B, and C structures internal of this movement. And we did see the high of 81.04 cent, sharp correction to the downside. But what we are doing, and this is quite a crucial one, is in this area we are finding support on the 50 daily EMA and the daily equilibrium. Now, what we can take a note of, daily stochastic momentum has completely reset to the downside. We are now completely oversold on ADA at 3.42%. So we could be looking for a bit of a relief here after this short-term lapse in price. Whether or not we breach this previous high is yet to be seen. I think we need to see these structures playing out first of all. But what I would personally be looking for is taking that 100% inverse movement of this drop to the downside and having a look at a very basic target area for the price of ADA to come back up to. Now this would be the 50 to 88.2% retracement of this drop to the downside. And as we can see, this would fall between 71.27 and 78.5 cents. Now what we can see right within this area is an internal sell order block. This one falling between 73.5 and 77.3 cents. This little red shaded box right inside of here, guys. This is going to be an interesting area to see ADA come up and test out. If we can breach higher than there, well, we would be looking to progress even further for its price. But it does seem like that may just be a stumbling block for ADA. See a push up into this retracement and a continuation to the downside. Now in this kind of movement, I would expect to see the daily stochastic come back up to the overbought territory before we would look for a potential continuation to the downside. Now we can also look at this another way by looking at the terms of previous higher volume for ADA, and what we can see very crucially here is ADA is finding support on this new bridge of higher volume here. We of course seeing the price come down to 62.8 cents. On that drop to the downside, well, we took out this area right here where we know we have no support, a lack of volume for ADA, coming down to the point of control here, which is slightly lower at 60.37 cents. We can see just here, we could potentially see that price come on down. Once again, this would align to the idea of coming back up to test out that internal sell order block, then a continuation to the downside onto this area of higher volume. Now we can be very bearish on this should that be the notion. Coming down lower than that 200 EMA, well, I do think we are in a bit of a trap here for ADA where we are going to see a return to 37 cents. We of course will be keeping our eyes on how this one does play out. But for now, what is going on? I do think we can be starting to look for a move to the upside in this retracement before a continuation to the downside. I do think that this is the most likely play for ADA, especially here on the 1 day time frame. And lastly, we will look at the 4-hour chart here, of course, 𝗕𝗘𝗪 being the data source for these lower time frames. These are the places I do all of my trading, guys. You will see the links down below on the bottom of the banner. Fantastic sign up bonuses with 𝗕𝗘𝗪. We, of course, have seen the price of ADA tumble. And most recently, guys, we can see on this 4-hour chart, we have came up to test out equilibrium. We have tested the 4-hourly 200 EMA, currently at 67.33 cents. We have lost it. ADA once again tumbling to the downside, and it doesn't look good from where we are sitting. The stochastic momentum tried to reset itself to the upside, coming up towards 67%, but crucially we can see this has now crossed the average once again. When we do see these averages cross, well, we do look for a continuation to the downside, and I do think that is the likely move here for ADA. We can see so far on this 4-hourly candle a drop of 5.05%, and there is every chance, guys, I do think that this one here could continue to drop. Taking the Fibonacci movement from bottom to top here, 62.89 cents to 69.89 cents, I do think we can be targeting a little lower, towards 61.34, the lower end here of 58.91. And overall, what that would give us is a wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, this being a wave 4, and this being a wave 5. And as we spoke about on the higher time frames, looking for that retracement up into these areas, these internal sell order blocks, then another continuation to the downside would give us a 5-3-5 corrective move here for Cardano's ADA. And I do think that we have most likely seen the local top here at 81 cents for ADA. Now on the 4-hour time frame, one last thing we will look at, of course, is the volumes. We can see how the volumes have played out so far. Once again, we have came up here to test out a higher area of volume, finding rejection at this point. Crucially, what we can see just here is we are coming down into an area where there is no volume. We see this price tanking to the downside, and our first area of support will be right about here at 62.1 cents. This would be a nice area of support. Should that be lost, guys, but once again, we can see we will come into another area right here of no support, and that would bring us down into this target area we do have marked out between 61.3 and 58.8. Now, lastly, the cipher in itself is indeed very bearish here. We can see another red print here telling us that we are to go short. Of course, not confirmed just yet. Wait for that 4-hourly confirmation, but the VWAP is negative. Money flow is starting to turn negative once again. We did previously have bearish divergence. We can see how that bearish divergence did indeed play out. And I do think, guys, we are likely to see this price continue dropping on down a little bit more for ADA. 61 to 58 cent on the lower time frames is my initial target. Overall, I think ADA's playing out as expected, guys. I do think we will see this pull down, another relief rally, then a continuation to the downside. On that BitGet chart, I do think that we have seen the local top at 81 cents for ADA. I hope you've enjoyed today's update. I hope you did take something of value away from it. As always, guys, smash up the like button, subscribe, tap on the bell. It does help the channel out when you do that for us. And of course, earlier on today, I did cover off Bitcoin, gave you all my thoughts on where I think Bitcoin is going next. That video is right here. Head on over and check it out.